Concoction Podcast, where we talk about everything and anything. Chris, how you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Very, very good. Very good.
Man, today kind of feeling weird, kind of happy and scared at the same time. It's a beautiful thing.
It's been one of those days, huh?
I don't know what people might think that we do in this podcast when they see the video, because lately it's been like
a lot of
drinking. What we have today.
Right. But luckily, we've been learning from the people that are serving us and bringing their great products, man. And today we have Chris from Denver Distillery, our special guest, Denver Distillery. Chris, welcome, man.
How's it going, guys?
Very, very good.
Welcome, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great, man. And you guys are local, so that's one of the reasons why we want you here.
Right.
So, Chris, I'll say let's start with telling us a little bit the story of Denver.
Yeah,
Distillery.
absolutely. So we very much are local. So Denver Distillery was started by my father-in-law. His name is Ron. Ron had the idea for starting this distillery. Almost 8 years ago now. He originally actually got excited about the possibility of a distillery, in part because there's this, I won't call it a loophole, but there's this clause when you start a distillery in Denver, and actually most places in Colorado, where you can have a tasting room and serve alcohol without actually getting a liquor license, which is expensive and takes time and all that stuff. So he saw that that law and said, "Oh man, I should maybe think about doing that myself." And he kind of got enamored with the idea. He started moonshining a little bit in his backyard, and it was one of those things where he actually really got excited about the process. He also owns the building that we have our distillery in currently. So it's one of those things where he could also see the vision of what it would look like. It's a historic building. It's a 1891 building right on Broadway, right on south of downtown. So it's one of those things where
the classic ones.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where he could see, I think, in his head very clearly the vision of having this really amazing sort of distillery space. The building at one point was an old hotel, and so you kind of got this sort of classic Denver feel, but having a really small, super high quality distillery at the same spot. He just really fell in love with the idea, and it took us almost 6.5 years to open our doors, because he was also coincidentally he got excited about the idea, but he didn't realize he was the first distillery in Colorado. Actually, I take it back. First distillery for sure in Denver to open up not in a warehouse, so not in an industrial zone.
Oh, okay.
So it took him 2 years just to figure out zoning with the city of Denver. So it was definitely a labor of love, and it would never have been possible if he hadn't already owned the building. All this rent he would have had to pay otherwise.
Right.
So yeah, that's in a nutshell how the distillery got started. But it's we've only been open a year. And right when we started looking towards a sort of a grand opening date, we actually were applying for our license for our tasting room. And we also, just again, happenstance, one of the wonderful side effects of taking way too long to open up a distillery. Hickenlooper at the time, lawmakers in Colorado passed a law creating the first distillery pub licensing. So that means that we actually can have local beer, local wine, or actually I'm saying local because that's what we do, but we can have beer, wine, other people's spirits in our tasting room as part of our sort of business model.
Gotcha.
So we really, if you come to Denver Distillery, you actually get this full experience that you don't usually have at any other distilleries. There's a couple more distillery pubs that's the license now sprouting up around Denver and Colorado in general. But we have food. We only do local products. So right now you come in and you're going to have Crooked Stave Artisans beer. We've done a bunch of different local. I mean, there's so many choices right now. So it's a kind of a full experience, which is also really, I think, feeds into that original vision that Ron, my father-in-law, had. That it's this really wonderful place to come hang out. Feels like Denver, like a little bit of Denver of old, Denver new, a little bit of a bohemian feel because it's sort of on this cool stretch. So it's been a lot of fun.
Nice. What's you guys' specialty? What's the main thing of the house?
I mean, this is only a sample of what we have, right? You're putting me on the spot because we have 10 different products.
Wow.
I would have to say right now, the products that are selling the best, perhaps, are our gin and our vodka. But that's until we release our bourbon, which that's that's going to be near and dear to my heart, and I think that will probably outpace them. But we're known for right now those two products. I think every time people come and try them, they're just amazed. So I think that's we should definitely taste those tonight.
Do you make them all? Do you make whiskey, bourbon, rum, vodka?
We sure try to so far. So the products we currently make, we make 3 types of rum. We make 2 types of moonshine, which just means that it's essentially an unaged whiskey, if you will. Gotcha. Moonshine is really a generic term that people use in the industry. That's technically it means illegal alcohol that you make at home,
like
but
back in Prohibition.
Yeah, or even backwoods, wherever, Tennessee or someplace. Or my father-in-law started when he made his stuff in his backyard, and I actually did some too. That was technically moonshine because it's not legal.
The bathtub shine?
No bathtubs were used, but pretty close. And it's now kind of this sort of marketing tool, if you will, that it means certain things to certain people. And so when we label our products as moonshine, usually people understand what we're going for, like this unaged spirit. So we have 2 of those. We have this gin, this vodka, and we have a coffee liqueur, which is phenomenal. And then we have some seasonal liqueurs, like a strawberry kiwi liqueur for the summer.
Nice.
That one's kind of a little bit on the sweeter end, and then we have a pumpkin spice liqueur for the fall. So for that 1 month window when people freak out about pumpkin spice,
or Thanksgiving, and then need a little break.
You can like hide it and stuff.
Nice.
So it's and we're gonna have we have a bourbon sitting in barrels right now that we're going to be releasing an early release batch soon. Give people a sample what's going on. It's delicious already. And then we have a smoked rye whiskey that we're sitting on as well that we're super excited about. So there's
very nice.
And we have all these other ideas. So we'll see what happens. But right now we have a ton. My favorite though, I have to go to the gin, the vodka, and then really close behind is our spiced rum actually.
Very nice.
Nice. How's the business been going since you guys opened? Like, how's everything going? How's the public reacting to you guys' products?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what's interesting about our business, like I think people are understanding now, is that we're really essentially almost 3 businesses in one. So you have the manufacturing, the actual distilling and fermenting, mashing, all that stuff, the making of the spirits. That's one business. The second business is really this bar that we have now. It's not just a tasting room. It's actually a full-on, the term that the licensing is pub, because we also have food. So, and then the third sort of, it's almost like a half business is everything related to the distribution, which is in that first business. But then there's a retail aspect to the bar. So you can go in and you can buy our bottles at our bar.
Nice.
So I think the different parts of that sort of trifecta are going at different rates. So the bar's been doing really well because it's someplace you want to come hang out. We do this thing where our bar, we encourage people to just come and relax. We don't have any TVs at our bar. You have to talk. You have to talk. Our cocktails. We always have some classics. We also have some unusual ones. So we want people to kind of engage in them. You get, you're in this 14-foot high ceilings with exposed brick, and there's all these places you can go and hang out. So it's one of those things where we want people to come socialize, and people loving that. Yeah, right. No, nothing against sports bars at all. I've enjoyed many a time in them, but for us, we wanted a little bit of different. There just aren't that many in our area. Usually, that you go there and you're kind of bombarded with music and TV and stuff. So for us, we wanted something different. So I think so. Right now, it's going great. The hard part about distilleries is the industry average from what we've sort of, as we researched it, that we found is anywhere between 4 to 10 years. And is the turnaround time for actually turning a profit for a distillery.
Wow.
In large part because you're aging products.
Right.
So that it's a tricky thing in terms of actually when you start your investment plan and you should put together your business model and all that stuff. You have to budget your cash flow certain accordingly and all that stuff. But it's one of those things where I think people don't realize like it's actually a really it's a very, you have to be very patient in this industry. What's cool about the distillery pub license that we have is we're going to meet way earlier than that in terms of getting meeting. So it's great because it's like I said, it's that bar aspect, which is phenomenal. I mean, last year we were at the Underground Music Showcase, the UMS Music Festival, right? We were one of the venues just because we were like, and super small, but it was super intimate. People had a great time. We had food out back. We're going to do that again this year. And it's one of those things where if you had a distillery out in the middle of a industrial zone somewhere, you just wouldn't have access to that livelihood. And there's some cool spots out. Like there's some wonderful distilleries that I love that are, a little bit off the beaten path, quote unquote. But this for us puts us right in the heart of Denver. So we're super excited about what the future holds for us.
Sounds like all you're missing, man, is an old school newspaper referencing Joe DiMaggio or the Yankees or something. Everybody comes in a suit. We're ready to socialize.
Absolutely. So we're one of the products that I brought here to sample as an absinthe, and it's got some unusual stuff. We'll talk about it in a second. But we're definitely going to have like a jazz band and like make it like do it up when we release that one. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's a good idea too for like a Halloween party
or a great great Gatsby themed party.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
very nice.
Absolutely. You definitely get this sense when you go into our space that it's some place that could have been a speakeasy or something like that for sure.
I love that concept. I think it's coming back, that concept of bars and places where like you actually kind of push people to be more social.
Exactly. People are getting tired of their phones.
Yeah, it's annoying. Like if you go to bars and like either people is on the phone or just watching like the TVs and nobody like want to have a conversation or this. And plus with great products,
with products like these,
and like for us that we love local,
local
business,
brews, local alcohol,
even better, So that's great. That's great that you guys have that concept. So, but it seems like people is reacting well to you guys' products.
Yeah, absolutely.
With their 2 feet on the ground.
I mean, I think there's a trick in this where since we are having to sit on whiskey, and this is definitely a whiskey state. There's been definitely a lot of people disappointed. Like, you guys don't have whiskey yet. I'm like, yeah, man, we've only been running for a year, type thing.
Hold on, it's coming.
We want it to be good, and so we have to wait and let it sit in barrels. So I think there's definitely
you got replacement whiskey. So that was going to be one of my questions. Is one, I was reading your website and I saw hard cider. That's one. Mm-hmm. So I was going to ask about that, and also, you do mention food and you do mention other types of drinks, other Colorado drinks. So what made you decide we're bringing this in, or we don't have this, let's bring this in, or what products from other people in Colorado did you want to bring in?
So the best thing about Colorado right now is that we just have so many options, and quite frankly, it's ridiculous. And not only like a lot of options, but a lot of really good options.
Right.
So for us, it was really more a question of, different people on our staff saying like, hey, I love this stuff. For instance, the cider you mentioned, we don't make it. But it's literally made a mile straight west from us. Okay. Colorado Cider Company. It's what we're carrying right now.
Very good place.
It's actually it's wonderful. It's actually what we use to cut, to make our apple pie moonshine. We use it we take our moonshine and we cut it with this apple cider. And, it's a fantastic product, and they have all sorts of things and we can, at some point we might rotate around another cidery, there's a couple options for us, but, I grew up actually drinking hard apple cider, and I'm not a connoisseur or anything, but I can usually spot a pretty good one, and it's great. So for us, it's just easy. And so in terms of actual business, like the bar side, we do want to have, like, say, gluten-free options for people. And you'd actually be surprised too about how many people come to a distillery and want to drink a beer. So it's one of those things where we're gonna accommodate them because we can. And also you can do some really fun stuff like a Boilermaker right off the bat, you know, like it's no big deal. We, for St. Patty's Day, instead of doing an Irish car bomb, we did we called it the Denver Boot, right? Because the Denver Boot, they were invented in Denver. So like when they put that boot on your car because you didn't, you know, pay your bills or whatever. So, you know, it's, we can do our take on it because we have a beer and we have, you know, different products that we can use for that. So, you know, it's a question of, without, you know, you do have to be conscious of the cost and all that when you're running a business. But in general, all these products that we have access to, they're great. They're, you know, reasonable, you know, price for the quality that they're at. It's actually really easy.
And food wise too, right? You're bringing in some pretty good food.
Yeah. Our food's awesome. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with meat pies or pub pies at all. Yeah. So we got approached. Actually, I can't remember. You know, we saw them. This is a company called Tip Top Savory Pies that we've partnered with, and they had gotten written up in, I think, Westward or someplace. They were just starting out, and we saw that what they were doing is, oh man, it'll be perfect for our space because we don't have a kitchen enough to be a full, you know, sit down meal type thing. Right. Table services, we have it, but it's not like, you know, we're going to be throwing an apron around, you know, over our arm and, you know, coming out to you. So the format of the pub pie and the meat pie, if you will, is perfect. So we contacted them. They're just getting started, and it's two owners. He's from New Zealand, and he started the company because he was frustrated that he couldn't get a decent pub pie in like an 8-hour radius outside of Denver, right? Like he had to drive like 12 hours one day to try and get a decent one that was fresh. And he's like, this is ridiculous. So his business partner, she's actually a French trained pastry chef. And so they're incredible. Like the ingredients are just out of this world. Ton of butter. It's awesome. So we get our pub pies. They're made up in Boulder, and they deliver it to us, you know, all the time because people love them. Yeah. So it's a fun thing too because a lot of people don't know about them. So you're already discovering this distillery that's, you know, we're a young upstart distillery. We've only been around a year. Most people don't even know we exist yet. But you're also getting some fun food experiences at the same time. Like I said, cocktails that you've never had anywhere else before. So it's kind of a, you know, we try and keep it interesting for people. And the pub pies have been great. They're doing seasonal ones. So for us, it's a no-brainer for us.
That sounds pretty cool place to visit. Definitely anyone who might listen outside of the state, if it's coming to Denver, you know, the Denver distillery can be like one stop there, you know, you had to make.
And the name, and their name is like, to be honest, when I was looking up some guests to bring in, I thought it was like your neighborhood, first of all. Yeah. And the name, to actually be able at this point in our world to catch a name copyrighted as Denver Distillery is almost ridiculous. So I thought you guys were like historically old. Just I never knew about you.
Yeah. Ron, when he saw that was available, I mean, you always, when you're starting a business, you look quick on like GoDaddy and see if the domain's available, right? Like that's how you start.
The easy one.
Figure if someone's doing that, then it's, you know, it's available. But it was available, and then he looked at what LLCs were around, and that was also open, and he snatched it right away. And within, I think, like 6 months of him getting that, he had like $50,000 offers for people wanting to buy it.
Absolutely, because it's like, not something you think about that's even available.
Well, and it's wonderful, you know, for all the people out there who worry about their websites and whatever. Like all of a sudden, you have built-in, like, you know, your results go to the top because it's like people are typing in Denver Distillery, and they're like, "Where is that?" And like, "Oh, there's an actual distillery named it." It was brilliant. He did. When he caught that, I was like, oh man, he's going to do well already.
It's a great start.
It's a great brand name, and it's great if you know, Google stuff. If you're going to just find a distillery, that's the first thing you're going to Google, you know, automatically it's going to be Denver Distillery. Right. And probably it will be the first option that will come out in Google.
We got so lucky on that one. We really did.
Yeah, that's pretty
really
crazy.
Cool.
So, go ahead, man.
So if you were gonna throw, we're looking at some empty little shot glasses.
Yeah. Let's do some tastings.
If you're gonna introduce us, this is our official introduction to Denver Distillery. Throw your best at us, man. What are you gonna show us?
And let's do it with a little bit of tell a little bit how the process of
Absolutely.
every product,
Absolutely.
so that way people know, because we pretty ignorant when it comes to liquor, and that's why we want whiskey of 12 years when you only been open for one.
So let me give you a quick primer on that. Actually, this is an interesting thing that most people don't realize.
Before you get going, in my ignorance of this whole thing, I'm embarrassed to say at this point, because I'm more of a beer drinker. When you say spirits, what exactly does spirits mean? Let's start with that.
Spirits means, usually it means anything that's been distilled.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Now, you have to be careful. That's alcoholic. So you have to be careful because like essential oils are distilled often. So those are not alcoholic. So you don't call those spirits. But it's usually some sort of alcoholic beverage that's been distilled, run through a still.
So simple, man. They make the name so mystical. I was like, I wonder what the hell spirits is.
It is kind of mystical.
But get us going, my man.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about. So we're a really small distillery. It's the technical term is a nano distillery, but the other thing to know about us is we're a grain to glass distillery, which means that we start with the grains and work our way up. So, or in this case, we'll start. This is our silver rum right now. I'm about to pour you. We just got a silver medal for this one for a silver rum competition, which was fun. But the idea here is we start with organic molasses and organic sucanat, which is a form of raw brown sugar. And you start with those raw ingredients and go forward, right? And you guys, I know, have had breweries on recently. We essentially start with the exact same thing as a brewery. Like we are essentially making beer, and then we take it from there and run it through a still. So that if you can imagine that process, it really is the exact same. We have a mash tun that we start with. We have fermenters. So for us, it's one of those things that it's great that there's so many breweries in town and that people are familiar with them, because we can start from there and be like, okay, if you've been to a brewery, we're doing this, but then we're going to go and take it a step further and run it through a still. And quite frankly, we're not making beer that you'd want to drink, but we are making technically beer. So one thing, so grain to glass. So this is something that I would love people to understand, is that not everything that you buy in a bottle is actually made in the distillery of which the name is on the bottle. So for instance, if you all look on the back of a bottle that you purchase next time at a liquor store, at the very bottom, usually there will be, sometimes on the front, there will be a little nomenclature, and this is required by all spirits that are sold in the US. And it has to say, it will say something like distilled and bottled by, and then it'll be the name of the distillery, Denver Distillery LLC. We're very proud of that it does say distilled and bottled. If it says produced and bottled, they don't actually make it there. And they actually purchase the spirits in some form. It could be a clear, unaged rum, for instance, and that they then buy it in bulk and throw it in a barrel and age it. It's fine. They may buy the whiskey already aged and it's basically ready to go, and they just put it in a bottle and slap a label on it. So in the industry, we call those distilleries bottling companies. So for your listeners out there, next time if you want to actually buy a product that has, and there's actually some debate in the world about distilled and bottled, but some people even go the next extra step by saying it's fermented, brewed, mashed, distilled, and bottled by, and it'll be the name of the company. So even locally, there's a bunch of distilleries that do not make their own products. So I'm bringing it up because we're very proud of that fact. You come to the basement of our distillery, you'll see grain strewn all over the place. You'll see we malt our own corn, and this product right here is organic molasses, organic sucanat. And then we throw it in some fermenters, let it sit for a few days. And this particular one, we run it once through our handmade whiskey still. It's a pot still. And then one more time through our column refracting still, which means that it's got these plates in the column of the still, and they help up the proof a bunch. So when this product comes out of that second distillation, it is around 90% alcohol by volume, 180. It makes it super pure, super high proof, and then we cut this down to a more drinkable level of 80 proof or 40% alcohol by volume.
For humans.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, you'd be surprised how smooth it tastes at 180 proof. I do it all the time just to sample what's coming off the still, and it's actually really smooth for being like so much fire. We cut our spirits down to the proof that we want it to be at with, we actually use Denver water, and we just filter it out to take out, your chlorines and all that stuff. we actually really like Denver water, so we were wanting to keep that, and we think it tastes delicious. So going ahead, guys.
How long you had to age the rum to taste well?
So this one is actually not aged at all.
Not aged at all.
And
do you have to age at all rum?
Some yes, some no. So silver rums are an interesting animal. They're a little bit of a niche market. Yeah, there you go, guys.
Jesus.
Silver rums can be aged, and sometimes they can be unaged. And the cool thing about some silver rums is what they do is a lot of places will age them and then they'll filter them afterwards through the traditional method is actually through coconut husks. Or coconut charcoal is another one, but usually it's husks, and it takes out the color. So, because when it ages, it gets up some brown color, and then it will bring it back to looking mostly pretty clear, and then they will bottle it, and that's to keep some of that aged character, but make it look clear because it's a silver rum. We don't age ours currently. We were actually really happy with how it turns out. We think it's pretty smooth already, and it got a ton of character. And like I said, we just won a silver medal for it, so we think other people agree too. So
very nice.
Dude, what's the best way to drink rum? Would it be just straight?
Oh man, however you want. So let's see. With this guy, I don't know if you guys are. One of my favorites is actually as a replacement. I like to do. Are you guys familiar with coquitos, which are like a Puerto Rican eggnog?
Yes.
So I like a silver rum in that. Some people debate whether or not you should do that or a dark rum, but I love it with the coconut, actually, the coconut milk.
I can see that.
Yeah. So you don't want it like a super overwhelming flavor. This is really smooth, really light.
Some ice, maybe? Can you put ice?
Yeah, absolutely,
cool.
yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, we actually use this, and I start with this product on purpose because we use this as the base for a bunch of our other products because it has character, but it plays well with a lot of flavors. So yeah,
it's strong, but it's no like
it doesn't
ugly.
overpower. It doesn't burn.
It doesn't burn. It's not like as soon as you put it in your mouth, it will hurt.
It's a slight burn, and your eyes are still intact.
Yeah.
And honestly, I could see how people could really get drunk, man, because you're like tricked into thinking it's okay, but after 2 or 3 shots, I'm sure.
I mean, definitely you can be like.
Make
that face. But it's not like, holy shit, what do you just give me? It's not, it has that horrible taste. Because if it would have, I would have said it, but no, this was actually, I'm giving you an honest,
no, absolutely.
honest review of,
no, please. We love it. So then the next one I'm going to pour you guys is the dark rum, which is actually this silver rum that we then cut with a little bit of that organic molasses. And, it gives it a little color, but really what we're after is flavor on this one. So this gives it a little bit of just a sweeter, but actually I feel like it gives it a little more character. The one I look for when I drink this is actually there's a little bit of sort of this toasted sugar taste, and it has a little bit of just a hint of a smoky flavor, I think. So
okay.
It's one of those. Going back to your early question about aging. Most people think of a dark rum as aged, and we have plans at some point in the future to start aging some rums more than we already do.
It's like a dad drink, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. You watch out. There's some hardcore rum drinkers you're gonna offend out there. I love running in. Like I said, the silver rum is a little bit more of a niche product. There's some diehard silver rum drinkers out there that are big time connoisseurs.
Very nice.
So.
There you go, my man.
I don't know how this podcast is going to end. Yeah, it smells good.
So this is, I think, what people think of when they think of a rum. This is this is more of a classic.
Yeah,
So this one we actually did this because there's just a whisper of smoke in that one. I think we actually did a cocktail at our bar that was essentially a knockoff. Almost like a smoky whiskey type thing going on. Almost felt like a smoky scotch. And what we did is we actually put different like smoky bitters in with the dark rum, and because it already has a little bit of smoke in there, it played really well. And the best part about it was we actually used a green tea, or actually no, it was a black tea that was smoky, and we made a tincture out of that. And then we also went and got smoky paprika and put it in. And nice. It literally, like, you'd almost be fooled into thinking that it was a smoky, like scotch. Yeah. So there was, again, it's like one of those things where you use a really good base and you can play and do sort of like different takes on it. So
very good. Yeah. I liked it. Christian, did you like it?
I did. Actually, that's like you were saying, that's like a classic rum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it has a taste. I can see myself drinking that.
Yeah. And kind of like in my harder alcohol ignorance, something I've always wanted to know, and I'm sure it's not a simple answer, but like maybe the difference between Scotch, rum, and whiskey. Like, what is the difference?
Absolutely, it's a great question. So it is complicated in that there are certain brands out there, or certain names of alcohol, is really a better way to put it, that are very much they're geographically delineated. So Scotch is the most famous one, I think. So you cannot make a Scotch outside of Scotland, because it is protected as a nomenclature. Bourbon actually is also it has one of those protected delineations, but you have to make it in the US. So it's a little bit bigger region. Another really famous one is tequila and mezcal. You cannot make a tequila outside of Mexico. You can't make a mezcal actually outside of certain regions within Mexico. So
I love that.
It's those. So I think people, the problem is, and this is where it gets complicated, is you can make a tequila here in the US, just you can't call it tequila. So we have some buddies, another distillery called Downslope. What they do is they get agave syrup, and it's really good. So they get organic, it's amazing quality, and they go on ahead and distill it and age it and stuff like that. If you buy all of their product at the liquor store or at the distillery, it says agave spirit on it. It does not say tequila, even though it's pretty much the exact same process as most.
Gotcha.
So you have to be careful.
Tequila.
Yeah, exactly. So broadly speaking, whiskeys are spirits made out of with grain.
Okay.
But that means there's distilleries that make all sorts of crazy ones out there. It's not just barley, which is most famous. People make it out of quinoa. Nice. Obviously rye is a huge one. Corn is a huge one. So there's a bunch of things that you can do there. Rums are spirits that are distilled from sugarcane. That's the rule. And in fact, we were looking at first to make a product out of sugar beets, because sugar beets are grown here in Colorado and they're readily available. We couldn't call it a rum because it wasn't sugarcane. It was beet sugar, and we ran into that problem. And we still might do something with that at some point. So there, like I said, there's spirits that have very geographically delineated definitions, and then there are some spirits that are just, the names are generic enough that they cover pretty much anything. Gotcha. So you can make a rum anywhere, you can make a whiskey anywhere, etc. The vodka, gin, there's no geographic delineations on this.
I want to know these jobs, man, these police officers that are coming, tasting your things and saying that can't be called rum because. Well,
in the U.S. it's called the federal government, and they do a very good job of it. Let me tell you.
You know them.
All these tipsy agents just talking crap.
No, we have to submit all of our recipes ahead of time to the feds, and they have to go through and make sure not only that the ingredients that we have are up to the definition of the product that we're advertising, but the labels on the front have to be a certain way that, so for instance, I'm serving you guys a spiced rum right now. This is actually our first aged product, but it does not say aged on the bottle. It says rested on very small print. There's not room. It wasn't like we were trying to hide it. And the reason why is aged has a certain definition, and I think it has to be over 6 months or a year. I forget off the top of my head. Anything that's aged, quote unquote, below that threshold is termed rested. So you can throw a piece of, some, let's call it a moonshine or a rum in a barrel, and if it's only in there for a month or a week or a day, it has to be called rested. If it's in longer or past that threshold, then you can call it aged.
Wow. Show to the camera so that we can see it. For anyone who's listened to this episode, it's a beautiful bottle.
Like I said, we're in the middle of redoing all the labels, but we had fun with this. Is our first take on it.
I like the logo.
Very clean cut.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very neat.
And let's try it.
Yeah. So guys, this is a really high proof alcohol. It's Navy strength, which means it's 114 proof. And we made it that way because it makes a hell of a cocktail. And you don't need very much. But what we did to kind of help with the proof of the alcohol is we throw it in barrels and we let it age for 4 months. It's actually our spent bourbon barrels, and we put spices in the barrel for that whole time. So it's fresh pineapple, cinnamon, ginger, vanilla bean. It sits in there, and then it really helps in terms of giving it really good flavor that to help offset it. But it packs a wallop.
It's one big Christmas party in the mouth, man.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
It's really good, but you don't probably want to drink it straight.
No.
Nope. Like, nope.
But it was good.
I read it and nope.
And
So-
you did. I heard the word. It's Navy proof. Is that what
Navy strength, yeah.
So is that come from an actual alcohol term, or is it because the reputation of the Navy to enjoy the
No. This one's great. A lot of people know this one. This one is Navy strength. Started off back, and I'm going to get the dates wrong, but I think it was the mid 1600s, somewhere in the 1600s. The Royal British Navy, so in England, paid its sailors in a portion of rum as part of their pay. So you got money every, however many months you're out to sea, but you also got paid in rum. And at that time, there was not a scientific way of measuring alcohol proof. So that we use hydrometers, we have all these instruments we have access to that tell us really, really accurately. They didn't have those. So the Navy at the time was trying to figure out any way to reliably make sure that whatever rum they were buying, whatever hooch they were purchasing for their sailors, was good quality stuff. Because you'd have people who would try and mask it and add some sort of chemical to make it feel like it has a ton of heat, but it was actually probably poisonous and horrible. Anyway, so they realized that they could mix a little bit of high proof alcohol, in this case rum, with a little bit of gunpowder. And if it lit the gunpowder on fire, it was high enough proof. And if you think of alcohol, and when you say it's 100 proof or whatever, the rest of that percentage is actually usually mostly water. And so gunpowder is neutralized by water. If it was too low a proof, it meant it had too much water content and the gunpowder wouldn't light. So really it was a scientific sort of method, if you will, early on in terms of making sure that they're buying their sailors really good alcohol. That threshold, which is, there's some debate historically about if it's 114 or 112, but that became known at the time as 100 proof in the British system. And so then now we know it in our system as 114 proof. It's a fun fact of history.
That's
really cool.
People, Leopold's has a Navy strength gin. People have there's all sorts of Navy strength products out there now.
Nice.
And it's a lot of fun, and people get to learn a piece of
That's
history.
really cool.
So many smart people out there doing this. I will be just like, get two people to start getting some bottles and
Whoever gets drunk faster,
Faster.
that's the better rum.
Yeah.
bring the best drunk that we have in the Navy.
But then you're dealing with Navy men, and they're all drunks anyway. Maybe so.
But you will calculate who gets drunk faster. So that's how
Very, very scientific.
Yeah, that's how dumb I am.
And I can actually verify that I did get my hands on some gunpowder, and our product did light the gunpowder.
How does
on fire.
that look, man? Like it just
Big,
inside the
big
bottle,
flash
outside?
of no. So I mixed it in a little container outside,
okay.
with a wand lighter, like at a distance, and safety
Yeah.
glasses on in the works.
Cool.
Yeah, you don't want to like
No, it made it made a little nice, fun explosion.
Yeah.
None of our underage students, please don't try this at home.
Don't try this at
No,
home.
no,
This
no.
isn't a professional distillery trying this.
Damn, I'm feeling like I'm becoming a professional drunk now.
At least an educated one, right?
That's right. That's right.
I can go in parties and talk about like, I probably will change the story. I will probably like start saying completely opposite of like,
Right.
yeah, you put some powder here and then throw some whiskey and like,
I'm glad this is recorded, because what he sounds like an open book, man, a very intelligent open book, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna repeat this at a party or something. It's gonna be horrible. So I'm glad we could hear this again.
yeah.
The good thing
I
is
won't quote it.
no one usually people won't challenge you on stuff. So you
That
can
they
bluff
don't
your
know
way
that.
through anything,
Yeah.
right?
They're like, "What is Navy proof?" I'll be like, "A bunch of drunk Navy men just
Yeah.
and,
did good.
and their mouth started on fire. It was proof.
That's how it was proof that was good.
Absolutely. What I'm pouring you guys next here is our moonshine. Sorry for spilling on your table.
Don't worry.
So like I said, this is just an unaged whiskey. So what we do with this one, the people who started this distillery, we all came up moonshining at home, and I highly encourage any of your listeners, if you want a cool hobby, go ahead and start moonshining at home. The feds do not care as long as you don't start selling it and making money. Then they want their taxes. But it's an awesome hobby. I would love to see home distillation become the next home brewing. most people in the industry here, especially in Colorado, where there just hasn't been a heritage, like in Kentucky, for instance, of tradition of moonshiners with official businesses. Have started doing this at home. And so there are, and again, another factoid, there are countries where it's totally legal. Like New Zealand is the most famous one. You can go and buy a still right now in New Zealand and start making your own moonshine at home or whatever. You can start aging it, vodka, doesn't matter. So this recipe that I'm pouring you guys, it's actually it's one of the most well-known, or there's several of them, but very, very well-known moonshining recipe out there, and it's called Sweet Feed Moonshine. Sweet Feed, for those who are listening who are into horses, will recognize it as the name for horse feed. So horse feed is essentially oats and molasses. When you think about distillation and fermentation specifically, if you think about the raw ingredients, you have your grains for the whiskey, and then you have some molasses in there that helps you with, up the proof. Super fermentable, super easy to make, the beer part of it. And then what we did is we actually didn't go out and buy horse feed. It's not actually like we didn't go out, but it's super cheap otherwise, and that's why people who are moonshiners love making those Sweet Feed moonshines.
How's the best way to drink that?
Yeah, that's slowly. Don't pound it. So yeah, this is a moonshine. So what we do is we distill it twice. And what we do is, I'll take a step back. We actually take our 4-grain bourbon recipe: corn, oats, rye, and barley. We ferment them with a little bit of molasses in there. So again, we're doing that Sweet Feed thing. Then we take it, distill it twice through our homemade copper pot still. And then we, the second time we distill it, we actually puree some lemons and limes, put it in the still, and it picks up a little bit of citric acid when it comes out the other end. So I don't know if you picked it out. There's a little bit of a lemony flavor in there. Very, very subtle.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the smell, but maybe that's what it was. It had a more distinct smell than the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this one, it's a little bit of our workhorse. We love that. It's 95 proof, so it does have some heat. But if you've actually tasted real moonshine, this stuff is way smoother than this is not a punch to the mouth or to the throat. It goes down much smoother, and that's in part because of the citric acid, in part because we're really paying attention to our process. Nice. But yeah, it's not an aged product, so you can substitute it for some cocktails out there, like a whiskey ginger does really well, whiskey sour it does really well. It has some character, but not a ton. For those cocktails like an old fashioned that really requires an aged whiskey, don't go near it with this stuff. So
and the term moonshine, is that a prohibition term? How did that get started?
I actually don't know the history of that off the top of my head, but I do know that it's really just a catch-all term for anything that's made technically illegally. So even though we're not making it illegally, we're sort of banking in on that sort of, people know what that moonshine means. But it really, the common usage of it is an unaged whiskey. It typically made at home or someplace in the woods of Arkansas or something.
You just want to get drunk in a forest.
So, but the honest truth is when myself and my father-in-law were making alcohol in the basement of his house or in his backyard before we started this distillery, that was technically moonshine.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool term.
It's got the Johnny Appleseed basement feel to it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you, which one do you prefer when you get drunk? Do you get drunk?
I actually do not. Quite frankly, I almost drink less now that I work at a distillery than before. I'm a lightweight, and I just do not enjoy the hangovers. So in general, had a few bad experiences back in the day. So no, I sample a lot of alcohol for my job, and so I really try to make sure that
you stay.
Yeah, and I, honestly, after a while, you lose some of the ability to taste nuances in the alcohol if you drink too much. So, if I'm relaxing with friends, I'll drink in it. But no, and I actually, I'm not trying to brag anything, but I don't think I've ever actually been drunk in any of our products yet.
Gotcha.
But that's maybe just because I've been so insanely busy.
Hey, that's a good thing. That's better for us.
I haven't been trying and not hard enough, evidently.
Yeah. Well, you have two more.
That's
You're
right.
You're gonna be drunk on
well,
your product.
There's more than that, but yeah. So then we'll zoom along. So this next product is actually the moonshine, like I said, that we cut with that hard apple cider from the Colorado Cider Company. So this one, it's a little beat up for a bottle. But yeah, so this one, it was a no-brainer for us. We knew that we wanted to partner with a local cider company. Colorado Cider Company is great because they actually use only Colorado apples. They make a great product. So what we do is we start off in this state here. We cut that with the cider and we put in some spices and bottle it, and it's good to go.
And I think the partnership came from Colorado Cider was another one that got lucky with the copyright name.
Oh yeah,
Denver Distillery said, "Hey, we could team up."
We got to watch what they're doing and imitate them. Absolutely. Yeah. No, they make a great product, so we're happy. And like I said, they're like a mile away from us, so it's been
very delicious ciders there too.
Yeah, it smells like sweet.
Yeah,
a little sweeter.
Mm-hmm.
For people who's listening, we're trying all this stuff right now.
You know, I'm not actually finishing. Like these are small.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it. Absolutely.
No, I'm not actually finishing, but I'll tell you this much: I'm getting slightly tipsy, and I'm barely like letting it slide into my mouth. Man, I can't imagine. Like this is tasting so good, but the potential of it, like giving you that good drunk, is incredible. And we're not, or at least me, I don't know about you, Christian, but I'm not actually finishing the actual.
I'm finishing the whole thing. I'll let you know tomorrow about being a good drunk.
That's right. It's a hard podcast to work on, I'm sure. Yeah,
it's difficult. I love that one.
Yeah, no, that one's
very good.
This is one of my favorites.
The apple pie is wonderful. I describe it almost like a cocktail ready to go. You just add some ice. So a lot of people come into our distillery and order it on the rocks, and we love that. You can make some hot toddies with it if you want in the winter, but for now, I think it works all year round. Actually,
that can be scary because you can get drunk.
Yeah, this one's a little bit
tricky. You're being drinking and
so
drinking.
If I were to answer your question earlier about which one to watch out in terms of getting drunk, I would point to this one because it's deceptively smooth and it's got a little sweetness in it from the cider. So you think, oh, no big deal, but yeah, you're still drinking something that it's basically 80 proof. So watch out.
Jeez. Yeah. So someone like me, man, like more of a beer drinker and like almost exclusively beer drinker with every now and then some shots. If I were to be introduced into this spirits and these harder alcohols, what would be a smooth transition for someone like me?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that one before. Let me see. Well, first off, I'd ask what type of beer.
Like a Pilsner, maybe.
Yeah.
Pilsner,
Okay. Yeah. I would.
Start with water. No,
I'd first help you sober up, and then no.
He says the Denver water I mentioned before.
Yeah.
Just go in the bathroom, take it in your hand.
I actually think this apple pie shine is pretty.
Right.
I think
that is the one I like the most.
It's pretty good to introduce people to like, hey, you know what? You want a good quality product that you can't get, most places, and it's features like a really local flavor and. It's pretty easy to drink, like a Pilsner, actually. So
it is very good.
I would go from there to the vodka, but that's just because I think we make a fantastic vodka. And I say that actually hesitantly because I think there's a little bit of a weird nomenclature, or sort of people think of vodka drinkers as being these certain type of people, and it's just not true. I get all sorts of vodka drinkers, and this one's really good. We'll get to it.
What's the vodka original from? Is that Russia or somewhere up there?
I would assume.
I think it is a Russian word. I'd have to.
They don't have like the provision.
The land that barrier you were talking about. You could only call it vodka if it's made in Russia or something.
Oh no, yeah, you can. We don't have that one there. Yeah, you can make vodka anywhere. And in fact, I mean, I'm sure I'm not a historian on this one, but I'm sure Poland has been making vodka equally long times. I think it's hard too because vodka, the definition for vodka is it's actually basically just a neutral spirit. And it's supposed to be by definition flavorless and odorless, but everyone knows it's not true. But like, for instance, if you go drink like a grappa or a brandy, there's not, in terms of the process, it's not that different because you're starting with a really usually a very simple grain or a simple fruit or whatever, and you're just distilling it once or twice, or in the case of vodka, multiple times. So vodka, I mean, you can make vodka from almost anything if you really wanted to.
Right.
It gets more complicated when you get into the, like I said, like as soon as you do certain methods. So like vodkas tend to be distilled a bunch of times, and that helps make it a vodka. So
cool.
Yeah, it can get there's a little bit of hair splitting going on in the industry.
How long you been been into the
he sounds extremely
No.
You're a nerd of distillery.
No. So I mean, I was interested in this stuff right around the same time that we came up with the idea of the distillery. My father-in-law did. So it was, you have 7 years to kind of learn. And like I said, I started, the first product I made was a bourbon, and I aged it in a really, really small barrel, and it turned out all right. So it's one of those things. And I tried a gin that didn't turn out so good. A wheat vodka is one of those things where there's so many resources online. There's great books out there that give you literally step-by-step instructions, so you can pick up a ton. It's really easy if you wanted to.
And hearing you mentioned your father-in-law, is this a family business?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, she is a little bit. Yeah, she helps with different marketing and branding aspects. Like this, we're, like I said, about to redo all of our labels, and she's been helping with that. So yeah, it's perfect. Family businesses are always fraught with peril, but we have a good time.
That's
cool.
awesome.
Sweet.
And it's local. That's awesome.
I know to have a good time with all this stuff. I'm having a great time.
Absolutely.
Let's go with the next one.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears, and we're going to do what I think are some of our better products in terms of, like I said, people just love these, and they're really unique. And then we'll finish with our coffee liqueur, and then our mystery drink right at the end over here.
Yeah, that looks like a perfume, but it's not.
Yeah. So let's actually do the vodka. Excuse me. Since that is I've been talking it up. So this is one of the things that is wonderful about working at a really small distillery. The idea for this vodka came up with literally shooting the breeze one night and saying, "Hey, what are we going to make our vodka out of?" And I piped up and said, "What about sweet potatoes? That sounds good, right?" And everyone's like, "Okay." And so like a couple weeks later, we had 3,000 pounds of sweet potatoes delivered to our floor, and we started chopping them by hand, and then all got too many blisters on our hands, and then we decided we should have to figure out some other solution. So this is our first ever batch. We've only made one so far. We're about to make our second batch. We take the sweet potatoes, we mash them, ferment them. There's a bunch fermenting right now. It's one of my favorite smells in the world is when sweet potatoes ferment. When you smell it and you taste it, like I said, vodka by definition is supposed to be essentially flavorless and odorless. It's definitely not. And I think
there's a smell to it.
That's why I actually had the idea of the sweet potatoes, of trying that out, is because I figured instead of just using like say sugar or something which a lot of people can do, or corn is another popular base, I really wanted something that would probably give it a flavor. So I describe this vodka as full flavored, full bodied for being a vodka. And so you get the character. You usually can pick out that it's from sweet potatoes if you're paying attention. There's a little bit of like almost like a mapley kind of syrupy sort of flavor in there that's really, really light. That I think is actually from when we put those sweet potatoes in our mash tun. It's 600 pounds and 150-gallon mash tun. We let it cook for a couple hours. Really try and get those sugars caramelized in there, and so I think that comes out in the flavor. Even though this particular batch was distilled 5 times through our stills.
How long is the process from the moment you start until the moment you can serve?
It depends on what we're talking about. The rum is the quickest. The silver rum is very quick, and we can basically get that out the door in a week. Because it ferments so quickly, because it's already so sugary, and the yeast that we add just love it. It sounds like soda water. It bubbles so much when it's fermenting. A little over a week, but the vodka is definitely more time intensive, because we have to process the sweet potatoes, because we get them in 40-pound boxes, and then we distill it way too many times. So that takes a long time.
Would you say when it comes to these types of alcohol, these kind of spirits, aging doesn't indicate better taste, does it? So like that vodka, by quality and by definition of aging, would you say it's better than this because of that? Or
my personal take on it, I am biased towards the vodka just because I think it's delicious, and it did take a little more effort to make it. However, I think you have to be careful, because if you're a rum drinker, you will appreciate this rum probably more than if you're not a vodka drinker.
So now, maybe it's a taste
thing. You could, if you want, there's different ways to cut that one. You could say, well, which one has more metals? Like, what do experts say? I'll tell you though, this vodka has been, we've had some people really, really get excited about it, freaking out about it. So
I liked it.
Yeah.
It was good.
So it just depends if you're a vodka drinker or not. So.
Too many people get fucked up in the bar.
Less than you'd think. We're pretty good about it. It's hard. You want people to have a good time.
Right.
But
save time, right?
You save time, right? If you serve alcohol to someone and they go out and kill someone in their car afterwards, you're liable. So you don't mess around with that. And
Tiger
also,
Woods should have heard this podcast.
Yeah, it's right.
A little too late.
That's too late. Right. Well, so that's the other thing too is like, no one likes it when someone's smashed. Quite frankly, unless you're at a party at your house and it's no big deal.
Just put them to bed.
But when people are staggering down the street and then other people who aren't drunk are like, oh man, should I take care of that person? So we try and make it.
And
take care of people.
The reason actually I say that is because there are a couple of those drinks you probably wouldn't even realize it.
No, that's absolutely true.
Right.
That much, and then you
and
can be like me. Actually, look, I'm acting here like I'm sober in a podcast. As soon as I get up, I'm like fall on throw all the cameras, everything.
So your bartenders here in Colorado, actually nationwide, they've all been trained. You're supposed to be trained. It's called tips training to actually recognize the signs of when someone's off over their limit. Absolutely. And the hard part is it varies on gender, weight, size, all that stuff. Yeah. So it's difficult. It's not, but you can, if you've been pounding 4 or 5 cocktails in the space of an hour, it's a pretty safe bet.
Logically, you're getting
you're pretty tipsy or pretty much smashed at that point. So
there was a time downtown. It was it Cooper Smith's? I forget which one it was. That you don't quite realize that you got there, right? And I actually stepped to their restroom to use the restroom, and someone politely tapped me on the shoulder and basically repeated that, like, it's a little too much. I think you have to go. But in my mind, logically, I was like, wow, I was behaving. I was consciously behaving. I was being good. But and the drunk end of it, if you do get that tipsy, you really don't know. You really should know, but you don't.
I think it's a pretty common reaction that people who are wasted just immediately deny that they're drunk.
Right.
It's like, I'm fine.
That's where it comes from. I drive better when I'm drunk.
That's right. And I took it politely. I walked out, but even as I'm walking out their door thinking, wow, that was probably rude. I'm not that tipsy. But my friend, once we were outside, he was like, you really are. I'm like, okay, cool.
In my book, that's a great scenario, right? That you didn't see it. It's pretty natural not to realize that you're drunk. Someone else told you and you were like, okay, good. I'm good to go.
That's about
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So but you have to be careful.
What's next?
All right. So we're rounding out the home stretch here. This is our gin. This gin is something else. This is the first. I love gin. I've had all sorts of gins. This one is, to me, one of the first gins I thought was truly a sipping gin, which means that you can just literally drink it straight if you want to. I always put one little ice cube in there. What we did with this gin, gins are really having a renaissance right now in the world. There's a ton of gins out there that are just incredible. What we did, which is a little bit unusual from the get-go, we actually started with the silver rum as the base for this gin. We did that because we wanted the silver rum. I wouldn't call it sweet, but it has a little bit because it is from molasses and sugarcane from Sucanat. It has a little sweetness to it, and we wanted this gin to be a really the genres of gin out there. There's people are probably familiar with dry gin, Bombay style gin, London gins. This is a genre that is pretty new in the world. It's called a new wave style gin. And it's just a catch-all term for anything that's not those other gins. Quite frankly, the characteristics is it tends to be more of they tend to be more floral, a little less juniper forward than other gins. So this gin is definitely more on the floral side. It definitely has more herbal action going on than your traditional gins out there. And quite frankly, people love that because they're so used to a gin tasting like a pine tree, like in their mouth, which I love. This one is a type of gin where you can... It's
like spearmint. I taste like
there's
a little
some mint in there.
Yeah.
So we actually have 19 different botanicals in our gin. So you get a little of this. We use that rum as a sort of just for that property of being smooth and a little bit sweet to pair with all the floral notes that we knew we were trying to get after. The other cool thing about this one is that we actually, if you all live in Denver enough and get around and buy spices that are really high end, there's a spice company here called Savory Spice, which is a place right down by Lowry Liquors. They have one location down here.
Okay.
they are incredible. I mean, they're spice wizards over there. They're obviously it's their business, but they really freak out about this stuff. We actually partnered with them to help develop our flavor profile. We had this sort of in our head, we're like, okay, if we want this sort of little bit of a spicy, fresh note, whatever, what type of herb will we use? And they're like, okay, this one, and this one. It's how come, I mean, they're brilliant. That we ended up purchasing 19 herbs for our, spices, for our botanicals, for our gin. But we love it.
Did you pay them in gin bottles, just like our old school Navy boys?
We hooked them up. We give them all sorts of deals here and there. We love them. We love savory spice. But so they helped us develop this flavor profile. So what I'd point to is on this gin is that we actually toast our juniper berries to help even muddle the flavor down a little bit more, and it gives a little bit of a sort of smoky toastiness to it. It's not really even perceptible, but that dialing down the juniper berries, even though it still tastes like a gin, still smells like it helps bring out all the other herbs that are going on. So the ones I pick up a lot of are lavender. I get a little bit of bergamot, cardamom. The spearmint for sure. Another weird one that people love is there's actually peppercorns in there. So there's a bunch of stuff that nice. you can kind of, people's palates are all different. You can pick out sort of a unique flavor.
I would say so far, even based on your explanation, this would seem like the exotic one. This is like the exotic one.
Yeah, and not only that, but gin heads freak out about this one because they've never had a gin quite like this before. It's super unique. We actually, one of the best parts about having our bar is that we get to do whatever we want to pair with our products. So for instance, this one right here, we make our own tonic in-house from scratch to pair with this gin. You can't get a gin and tonic anywhere else in the world like ours because A, our gin is so unique. B, we make our own tonic. We also, we tried a bunch of other people's tonics and there's some incredible ones out there. We just didn't feel like it matched ours very well. So.
It's good. I'm not a big fan of gin, so my reaction to it was like, my feelings were like, I don't know.
You didn't know what to go with.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure I put my faces to all the reactions that I've been with every drink that I've been having, because that way people know that I'm really, what I'm saying is what I'm really feeling in my body. Because it's not, I'm not here trying to kiss ass or anything like that. I love some of the stuff.
The gin one.
Like,
I actually like the gin one. It seems like a good way to catch those tea drinkers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Snag them in.
Absolutely. There's actually gin makes some really great cocktails with tea. That's a good call right there.
Here's my favorite. I'm a big coffee guy, man. Is this the big boy?
This is the jam right here. So our coffee liqueur. Again, sorry, my bottles are a little worse for wear. So this coffee liqueur starts off as a rum. It actually starts off as a silver rum. And what we do is we actually partnered with a local coffee roaster. Again, here's the theme again. And Kaladi Brothers down by DU, down by Denver University. And they actually have built their own machine to extract, make a coffee extract in bulk.
Nice.
So we get coffee extract it's super concentrated coffee in bags, and we put that in with the rum. We also put in chocolate, pink peppercorns, and cinnamon. Let that all sit for a day, and strain it and bottle it. That's what this is.
Let's do it.
Let's do this. A little chocolate. And you say you got this from DU, or
the coffee is from Kaladi Brothers Coffee. They are one of the original coffee roasters, and they make incredible coffees. They're super ethical in the way they source their coffee beans. The reason why we went with them is they were able to get us coffee extract, because most coffee liqueurs tend to be really light proof, and this is still 80 proof. Actually, it's 81 proof. Nice. So the idea for us is we wanted a really full-bodied, full-strength coffee liqueur. If you were to use really regular coffee, it would dilute down too much down to that like super low proof. So using an extract actually helps us keep it high proof.
It tastes a little like when you bite into those chocolates, those maybe Valentine chocolates that have liquid in it. This is delicious, man.
I can see why people will like that.
Very
not my
delicious.
favorite, but I can see why people would enjoy that.
We designed it in part so that, like, again, it has a high enough alcohol content where it pairs with the strength of the coffee, but also you can just add half and half to it and a little ice, and you have yourself a White Russian without having to go out and buy vodka too at the same time.
So, no, that's nice. Yeah, that's a good. That's actually a good idea, because I love White Russian.
Can you imagine how many drunks are there would be like, I'll do this on Monday at work. Yeah,
We've got coffee liqueur for you.
This is gonna be my weekend.
Is that what you would call something? For example, what you just described with that, is that what they call an Irish coffee or
just a White Russian?
White Russian.
Yeah, White Russian.
White Russian.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
That's my favorite
Like the Big
drink.
Lebowski.
Yeah. You ever see that movie? It's all everywhere with the White Russian.
Right.
Well, let's go with the final and the mysterious.
So all right. So guys, this is everything I've poured for you all for today is for sale at our distillery. This is not. This is a test batch. So we live in Colorado. There's all sorts of fun stuff about that. One of the things that is fun about our fair city in Denver specifically is that we have access to products that other people don't have, such as marijuana and hemp. This does not have any marijuana, but it does have a ton of hemp in it. Nice. So what we did is we were thinking through. We knew it's Denver Distillery. We want to reflect our city. Hemp is actually a really cool product, especially if you try and isolate. I know there's controversy about you getting high and all that stuff, so we won't go there. But hemp in of itself, without those properties, is actually a really interesting product to look at. Not in terms of nutrient, in terms of hemp seeds, but also in terms of flavors, oils, all that stuff. There's all sorts of cool research going on about hemp. So we knew we wanted to make a product that reflected what was going on, and we really wanted it to not just be something that was a gimmick, like hemp, blah blah blah. It's gonna sell like
Colorado.
Yeah, whoa, man. There's plenty of that already going on.
Oh, yeah.
So we were testing out different recipes, and we came up with the idea of, absinthe is this really interesting, really sort of kind of mythic spirit. Let's see if we can make a test batch of absinthe that uses hemp as an ingredient, and we were blown away. So this product right here we're working on getting it out to market. But if you come to our distillery right now and come to our distillery pub, our tasting room, you can buy this and drink it at the bar. We just can't sell you bottles of it because it hasn't been approved by the feds yet. So
we're getting some true moonshine.
This is the real deal. Not only that, but this actually also uses 2 different types of wormwood. Like I said, it's 130 proof, so just go real slow on it. Smell it, because what I get with this is I definitely get some of that skunky hemp notes in there. We wanted that to be available. It's at the forefront of the nose. If you're familiar with absinthe are characterized mostly by a really kind of anisey, licorice sort of flavor going on. This has that, but it has it more on the flavor profile. So we wanted, like I said, something to pair. It's
kind of
together,
sweet, kind of almost like minty again.
Yeah.
I love the taste.
There's some mint in there as well. Absolutely.
Very nice.
So we wanted the mint to pair with the hemp because we like the flavor of the 2 together.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So this one, this is like, again, one of the great things about working in a small place. You get to do test batches and see what happens, and people have been loving it at our distillery.
And I love the way you brought that out, man, because I'll tell you one thing. You mixed the hemp story, the ingredient with it, and it's not a big deal. We're from Colorado, and I'm getting tired of going to concerts, and like half the concert is them trying to tell us, let's get high, yay to the weed. And for us here in Colorado, weed is like a normal thing. So we don't have to have it shoved in our face. And the way you just sold this product with hemp is exactly that smooth local transition.
Man, people need to chill out about weed. I think that's
exactly.
Exactly. And I think what we're interested in about it is, there's all sorts of great uses of it. Don't get me wrong. But what we're interested in specifically at our distillery, we're interested in creating new, fun, original products that haven't really been made too much before. If we could get this out to market, we'll be one of the first in the U.S. There's people already doing it in Europe, and it actually makes a really legit, delicious product. It's not just
I liked it.
So
we're
really excited about how this tasted. We're gonna get it out as soon as we can.
Are you guys gonna try anything with mushroom? No, they're been approved.
Man,
jump on that.
Definitely not right now. First off, I don't know how in the heck you could. Afford to make something. Those things are expensive. No, there's all sorts of stuff out there that we have a bunch of ideas, but for now, even just getting this out and about, it's going to take a lot of effort for us. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what you have, honestly, man,
we've got plenty to go.
Seriously impressed.
Thank you, guys.
I loved it. Yes.
Yeah. We love it. I think
we try our best to make the best product we can.
Absolutely. And it shows.
You guys are doing great, actually. I love a lot of the products. Like, I already know like which one is my favorite and which one I can, definitely see myself drinking more often, like, because I love, not that I get drunk, like, I drink the whole bottle, but I love to make my cocktails
just
and taste a little bit. So
what about that question that you're bound to ask, and I'm sure you hear it more than 5 times a day, but like, what is in your bar the thing that you make that has the most alcohol percentage?
So that absinthe we actually have the bar make it. That is, I mean, it's 130 proof. You don't drink anything higher than that. And like I said to you guys earlier, this is yeah. So it is meant to be diluted with ice water, and so that's the trick, right? So yeah, I mean that and the Navy strength rum is pretty freaking hot, man.
Nice.
But we like I said, we match the flavor to go with it, and I'll tell you, for a spiced rum, that thing makes incredible cocktails.
Nice.
Really. So yeah,
based on the flavor, I would agree with you. It
really
has
is
a very smooth,
really fun,
beautiful taste.
Well, Chris, we're short of time, but definitely, hopefully you can come back and give us not necessarily more of drinks, but more
education on this
subject, because it's pretty cool actually, having a little bit of knowledge of the behind the doors,
very detailed knowledge, man.
Guys, come take a tour and we'll stick our head in some fermenters too.
Absolutely.
Go smell some barrels. But yeah, I would love to come back. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And
I'll come back when I have an aged whiskey on my hands.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let us know where you're at, man. Where if we want a tour, where are we going?
Coming down to 244 South Broadway, right down from just it's like 15 blocks south of downtown Denver.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you guys have going on right now?
This Friday, for anyone who wants to go nuts, there is a thing called the Colorado Spirits Trail, and if you are adventurous, outdoors, love to travel, you pick up this map and it has on there. It's probably about 60 plus distilleries that are all on this map. And if you go to each one of those distilleries, get a stamp, drink some stuff, whatever, and come back, the first couple people to do it and complete go to all of the distilleries wins a huge prize.
Oh, nice.
And so it's also just a great way to explore Colorado.
Yeah, very fun.
It's all over. So this Friday at the McNichols building, right by Civic Center Park, we are having a big festival where 60 plus distilleries are all going to be pouring unlimited tasters of all of our products. And then there's going to be like DJs and stuff. So yeah, we've got that stuff going on. You can come down first Friday of the month. We have these great guys. They're called Soul Time. That's live music. The guy has more harmonicas on his holster than you've ever seen. Blues, Americana. So we've got live music. We've got all sorts of stuff going on.
Perfect. Yeah. And if someone listening here had been drinking with us and didn't quite catch that, what's your social media for them to learn some of it?
Just go to denverdistillery.com. We've got a Facebook page, Denver Distillery, as well. I think our Instagram is literally Denver Distillery as well. So it's
pretty easy. I will go with that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Perfect, man.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
Thanks,
Chris,
for coming.
My pleasure.
So much for
listen, and you guys have been very good sports about drinking all of my stuff.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And it's been our pleasure. It wasn't a job or fake at all. So cool.
All right, man. Where they can find us?
They could find us at the Concoction Podcast, Instagram, Facebook, the Concoction One, Twitter. And you'll be able to see yourself in a few days on YouTube at the Concoction Podcast.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Everybody, please subscribe, share, and like our YouTube channel, please. Or if you listen, I guess, Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes, you can subscribe there too. And share all this information with your friends, family, whoever wants to know how to drink. This is a great episode too.
Or just learn about local companies, man. And based on your story, everything seemed local, to the tea shop, to the spice shop, to the Denver water that we just get naturally. Beautiful stuff.
It's been great. All right. See you guys next week.
Thank you.